So welcome everyone to the InsureTech Connect Asia podcast, where we are exploring the ever-changing landscape of technology and its impact on the insurance industry. I'm your host, Tricia, Director of InsureTech Connect Asia, and today we are delving deep into the evolution of technology within the insurance space. We'll discuss the challenges, solutions, emerging tech, and hear some intriguing insights from our special thought leader guest today. So sit back, relax, and interesting discussion. Let us first introduce our esteemed judges, esteemed guests for today. And we have David Tan, Chief Data Officer of Income, Max Ang, Insurance Technology Research Advisor, APEC for Celent, as well as Rangam Bir, CEO and Managing Director of AmMetLife. And welcome everybody. It's great to have you all today. To kick things off, let's address the pain points that have plagued the insurance industry. Maybe we can kickstart with David. What do you think are some of the major challenges in the insurance industry, and what have you experienced due to outdated technology and processes?
Sure, my pleasure. Firstly, Tricia, thank you for having me on board on this podcast. Exciting topic, and one undoubtedly I think all my co-guests here will actually talk more about as well, because it's really in front of mind. So one of the challenges in industry is basically around, whenever you have a outdated technology and processes, it comes through the integration, which becomes a challenge. With integration, I mean, it manifests a lot through the data. I might be biased because I'm a chief data officer, but one of the main challenges is around the data and how we can actually commercialize and actually use it, right? Because that's where the outputs of technology most of the time comes to life for the business.
Maybe Max, would you like to also jump into the conversation as well?
Yeah, thank you, Tricia. So building on David's point on the data integration, I think the other things which I think are the major challenges could be inefficiencies of the current legacy systems that especially is faced by matured players like Singapore and so on. Because what we see is that when it comes to certain markets, that tends to be a bit of a difference of how the challenges would be, a matured versus a developing country. A developing country is usually more on insurance penetration and so on. And I think the other aspects will be customer experience. Today, I think if you're targeting different generations, you have to cater to different segments of how do you engage them. Or like, for example, if people expect a similar digital experience, you should offer those sort of services, personalized services, or even quick response time. And I think the other point is on cybersecurity. As we start to include more data into our solutions and processes, automation and so on, I think security has also grown to become one of the key factors. I think in one of the surveys that we did this year at Celent, we realized that almost 50% respondents will say that 50% of their concern is on cybersecurity, alongside the other innovation factors that helps them to produce better solutions or even better customer servicing. Yeah.
Interesting to hear. And of course, Rangam, you're based in KL. I think you have a lot of different experiences compared to me, David, and Max, who are living in Singapore as well. Maybe share a little bit of your insights as to, what you think are the major challenges, maybe pertaining towards your industry and your environment, or anything interesting as well that you would like to share.
Yeah, thanks, Tricia, for having me join on the podcast, and certainly a very, very interesting topic. One perspective certainly I have is really at the leadership level, when we are obviously looking at some of the constraints that technology imposes from a leadership perspective. And one thing that I recognize is core systems by nature are not designed to be flexible, right? Whether you're implementing a new core system or whether you're implementing a legacy core system, they are more designed to deliver the overall value chain in a more compliant and integrated manner, rather than offering you the flexibility to customize your value chain and the experiences that we want. So to that extent, obviously there are certain inherent restrictions when you take a look at how you deal with core systems and legacy systems. Obviously, companies are not investing into core systems, every few years because the triple-digit million investments sometimes they entail. Obviously, they need to be maximized in terms of the ROI for the amount of investments that are made. So I think that itself is one of the bigger challenges. But I think where the insurance industry has obviously transitioned over the last few years is recognizing that not everything can be done in-house. So the question is, how do you incorporate external partners, components to, in a way, customize your core system to be able to deliver the experience that we are all kind of looking at. But also agreeing with what David and Max mentioned earlier, is data architecture has been a major constraint because the data architecture has been really designed to cater to the core system. So, especially as we're looking at moving towards more advanced analytics and generative AI, how do we really leverage off the data architecture to be able to service that need? And the other aspect is, what I call the technology debt coming out of end of life, end of service systems, how they need to be kind of catered for. And as Max already mentioned, a lot of investment, just because we are a regulated industry, is going into cybersecurity. So cybersecurity, it's always the available dollars that are available to be invested. And at the moment, there's a lot of dollars being invested into cybersecurity.
That's quite interesting to hear. I think we're always in an evolving space, right? Whether it's the challenges or whether it's regulation. I think the fact that we're all in this insurance space is that we will never be surprised about how challenges are constantly evolving. So maybe now let's shift gears to talk about the solutions that are transforming the insurance industry. Maybe Max, you could start by sharing some of the innovative solutions that are making waves in the insurance sector and what technological innovations have been pivotal in addressing the pain points that you mentioned earlier.
I think technology that's impacting today's what the tools that how it helps to address the pain points is, I think the first of all is cloud computing. There is more recognition of moving, or buying solutions via the cloud. So you're looking at partners who have SaaS provision and so on, or even PaaS provision, and even the insurers themselves are trying to migrate their data to the cloud. Of course, it's dependent either will they be comfortable with a hybrid cloud model or a private or public. So that's still up to how the insurers would like to design. What we know is that sometimes the private cloud are used more for customer database, and then public is for another set of metrics that they want to measure. So, but it's still something that's on their mind. And I think the next thing is AI and machine learning and data and analytics applications. These are things that up to today is still quite popular or prominent in terms of the priorities of say the CIOs and so on, because they are looking at how can they make use of the data that they have, especially in the insurance industry where we always say that we have a lot of data, but it's all siloed in a way, and how can we bring them together to provide better solutionings. And I think that the third thing could be more there might be more usage of alternate data and sensors, especially for different lines of insurance businesses. Especially life and health, you'll see more of them attempting to look at healthcare data as a way to better accelerate underwriting, or even for the PNC side, it's more on like, can we use sensors to provide parametric covers? And just going back to health as well, life and health and PNC, they could be looking at fraud as a way, fraud prevention and detection. And so sensors, technology, and so on could help in these aspects. And I think the pivotal technology that's bringing all this together is the API approach or microservices. You might have heard about it throughout the conferences of various insurers. So by having the middle layer approach, bringing in the core systems of the legacy core systems, and then including the new services like AI, data, and so on, through API provision, I think that's one of the way that in this current term, it could help modernize the system as well as provide a new outlet into new technologies. Yeah.
Thank you, Max. I think maybe I shouldn't have let Max go first. It feels like he has covered a lot of the things that I had in my head as well. But Rangam, please continue as well.
Certainly, I fully agree with you. Max, I think, has covered the entire gamut. But what is very important, I think, from an insurance service space, right? I think there has been progress in a lot of different areas. Especially, I think the digital front ends are taken for granted, right? And especially, how do you innovate distribution? Doesn't matter whether you're talking about the agency channel, the banca channel, online sales, or at any point of sale, embedded insurance. So the digital front end experience and how that then talks to your back end using the API layer, I think that is becoming very well adopted. A lot of those solutions, as Max mentioned, are cloud-based. And very often also using the SaaS model to really use the microservices architecture to plug into your backend. The other areas where I do believe there's been quite some good progress, I would say, by and large, and now having come back from IDC Vegas, where we are still talking about issues around payments. I think in Asia, we have made huge progress on digital payments and integrating digital payments as part of our core offering. Talking about eKYC is now becoming really mainstream in terms of adopting those components as part of the technology environment. And the last bit, I would say, where again we see a lot of discussion happening, but that is also becoming quite mainstream, is really digital service and digital customer self-service, right? Because that is beginning to change the overall customer experience and simple customer expectations. How am I able to service and how omni-channel that service experience is at? Do I still need to go via the agent route or the bank route, or am I able to really service my portfolio and do a lot of the work by myself? And what kind of platforms and tools do I have in place to be able to enable me to do that, right? So I think those are some of the areas where there is a lot of work happening today.
Thank you. And David, yourself, anything to add?
Well, yeah, I guess Max and Rangam covered a lot of the gamut as well, that what's in there. But what I think of is around a lot of the technological innovation today is I'll reuse the word again, it's about integration, right? Where it came up to like what Rangam was saying earlier. We started any FI from a very legacy system process. Now with things like cloud and microservices, everything seems to be part of a whole marketplace of technological solution. Now the differentiator is how you could actually integrate those things together, right? So I guess one thing that probably has taken a bit of a slower speed currently, but I think the technology is something that could still be on the table to look at, is blockchain, right? It maybe not now, not the first 1-2 years, because there's still a lot of volatility, but that technology is actually something that's still quite worth looking at. The next one is basically around we talked about AI, but the premise of low code, no code kind of a solution. I think that can be a bit of an accelerator of how insurance firms, as they move towards things like fintech, InsureTech, they can actually help to migrate those kind of capabilities in-house and self-innovate. I think those could be the new enablers that actually could propel the industry forward from a technical standpoint.
Thank you. And I think that's super impressive as well. I think as technology continues to evolve, what are the insurance companies looking forward to incorporate into their operations? And maybe Rangam, you can also shed light onto the emerging technologies on insurers' radars. What are some of the tech trends, innovations that insurers are actively exploring for future adoption?
Certainly. I mean, again, from a technology perspective, the big buzz in the room obviously is on generative AI from a technology perspective. And that obviously requires data as being a prerequisite in terms of how do we not only just design our entire data architecture, how do we use the modeling and the integration, because there's already so much of data that is there in the system from an insurance perspective. How do you really use that and bring that together to be able to, in a way, make the experience more seamless for customers? And that goes into really 3 areas, what I call customer experience design, right? How, typically the customer journey within an insurance company has been usually very fragmented from the time the customer is acquired, then the servicing part of it, and then finally when the claims settlement happens. It has generally been a much more fragmented approach. So how do we use the data? How do we use generative AI to really make a much more integrated and a seamless omni-channel experience for customers? I think is going to be a key area for development. I think insurers are beginning to understand the technology landscape much better. And as David mentioned earlier, integrating it all together, I think is going to be the next phase. And that would also lead to much better tailored or customized individual propositions. I think this is an area where purely from a product from a product configuration, from product engine standpoint, I think is going to be a lot of development in terms of how do we have flexible modular product engines which allow for much more individual customization and pricing, which will be a big driver of the technological change as we go forward into the future. And the last bit, which I kind of mentioned earlier, but I think it's worthwhile mentioning again, is really the customer service technology. Whether, we've been talking about chatbots at the back end, but customer self-service and that customer self-service experience and how generative AI is actually going to be facilitating a much more omni-channel experience where we know what have been the various touch points the customer has accessed the company and what are the expectations and how we can tailor that customer service to make sure that the customer really receives the level of service that they're expecting. So those would be the areas from a technology standpoint where I see certainly a lot of work happening over the next coming years.
Thank you. And of course, David, I have to ask you, right, being from Income as well, a very large corporation, I think there will be a lot of different technologies that you are looking to adopt or actively trying to find. What are some of the things that in your perspective make sense, or maybe some of the things that you have been, some projects that have been ongoing that you or you're looking to ongo? What would be some of them?
Yeah, I mean, I could name a few. So, I mean, one of it is obviously we're looking towards how we can adopt cloud, as part of our technological strategy. As we said earlier, it's an important ecosystem and enabler right now, right? It's one that allows better, what do you call, management of it, because it's easier, probably, to be fair, in terms of managing the services within and also adopting new technologies that could actually be implemented. The other one is obviously goes without saying data and AI. So that's something personally, myself and team, we're building a lot. And on top of that, what to actually insert in here is around ethical AI, right? So it kind of comes hand in hand. As we go more and more into using data, you apply more better intelligence on it in the form of AI. Then we want to make sure that these are all done within a certain guardrail. Because at the end of the day, we are in a place of servicing our customers, right? So the ethical AI is something that we're looking at as well in conjunction to everything. And also, I think as we talk about technology, it's important to also think of it from our customer's perspective as well. We spoke earlier, like the customer service, the expectation from a digital customer experience. So I think things around customer management would be something to actually look at as well in the horizon, because at the end of the day, the insurance space is a very emotive experience for the customers, right? Sometimes be it buying, also the claiming. So, and it's one that could have lots of people involvement in terms of the touch point. So therefore, how do we digitalize that, but also maintain the human connection, I think could be a differentiator.
Thank you so much. And Max, anything you want to add? I know you're not from an insurer, but any insights that you have talked to people and feel like, is something worth sharing as well?
I think one of the key, I would say, probably not technology itself, but more on the trends that they should look towards is more on having it probably alluded by David and Rangam as well, on the integrated ecosystem. So what I mean by that is that to look at the whole insurance landscape as who are the partners you could work with, what are the things do you buy or what are the things do you build, and then also looking at other domains like how do you work, for example, customer experiences through the bank assurance channel, or even looking at the wealth side, or even there was a case, how working together with telco companies to offer certain products that pertain to insurance or even on the super app. So those are the kind of partners that we look at to form out the whole ecosystem that we hope to have. And I think another point to bring up is that sometimes in terms of the partner activities, it's also to know which InsureTechs are the ones that will help you, or which are the ones that can provide you a better service. I think it also back to our survey was that when we asked about technologies that we will build or buy, 50% will say that in terms of data analytics and AI today itself is still pretty much partnering or buying of solutions, because the insurers may want to look at certain expertise that InsureTech may offer, be it like modeling, data processing, how do they bring in alternate data sources, or even crunching sensor data and so on. So that's one aspect. And when we talk about core systems, also looking at how should you get replacements, or should you get replacement, or when do you look into your existing system itself, and could there be upgrade from the provider that you're having now, or even internally building yourself? Are you capable enough to have that kind of talent pool to innovate and modernize in a way? So I think these are the trends that I see. It's more a people aspect of internal organization. And once you get that right and find the right partners, you can service the customers that you hope to have in future as well, or even at present time. Yeah.
Yeah, and you made a really good point, right? I think that really nicely kind of going to the next question. I think when we talk about buying solutions, when we talk about, working with certain partners, overcoming legacy systems can be quite challenging. And David, of course, are there any strategies that insurers are using to transition from outdated systems to modern, efficient technologies? And how are insurance companies dealing with the transition from legacy systems to a more agile and advanced technology?
Yeah, I think it's actually a tough one, right? Because you may know, I come from a banking background as well. Regardless if it's insurance or banking, transition from a legacy to a new platform is extremely hard. And I think there's no silver bullet, unfortunately. But I think one strategy that is worth actually, looking at is the people, right? Regardless, it's a buy or you co-build, it centers around whether do you have the right competency and resources, right? And I purposely put it in that order, right? So it has to be have the right competent people and the resources for that competency to ensure that either you design it at point of buying so that it actually integrates, or if you co-build, you are able to, upskill and learn and maintain it, because end of the day, it's about what we do now is going to be the legacy in the future. So how do you actually have the right people strategy involved to able to, build or buy, maintain, and basically commercialize that technology in the future? And in the world that we live in today, where the technological advancements go so fast, the speed and the need to change is so much more, right? So therefore, I think it all bounds on, there's no silver bullet on a technology or strategy, but what we can't go wrong, a no regret move, is basically a people strategy. And finding the right people in a technical space, we all know, is probably one of the hardest challenges as well.
Thank you. And of course, Rangam, to you as well. I think AmMetLife would have a lot of challenges with regards to overcoming legacy systems. So maybe you can share a little bit more.
Oh, certainly. And one of the, I think it's quite interesting that both Max and David actually highlighted the people part of it, because I think we've reached a stage where it is taken. I think most organizations recognize that the previous attitude that, if it was not developed internally, it would not be accepted is no longer an issue, right? We all recognize that we do not have the internal capabilities to develop some of the innovative solutions. And if you really want to keep pace, we've got to be adopting and integrating external solutions, because that's where we also kind of buy in the skill sets, we buy in the technologies, because your internal teams do not really have the bandwidth and the ability to be familiar with all the different technological options and solutions that you have in the marketplace, right? So that leads to, and thankfully that is not a point of discussion anymore. But what is still, where from a people perspective, I think what is still very critical is a lot of this has to be leadership driven, because what I do recognize, let's say some of the internal IT teams tend to be much more focused on the legacy technology than really with the new technologies that we are dealing with, right? So then you suddenly get into a spectrum of the skill sets ranging from managing and retaining core system skills, which are really legacy skills, to bringing in the necessary skills from, whether it's from a cloud perspective, whether it's from data perspective, AI perspective, and that gap is huge, right? And managing that is a conversation which really has to be very leadership driven. It starts at the top. So it starts with even, I would say, what are the kind of conversations we are having at the level of the boards, the CEO, because that tension, I would call it, and there is an internal tension, is no longer something that can be said, okay, it's an issue for the IT folks or the CIO of the organization to be fixing. It really becomes then a strategic issue to say, okay, how do we view the business strategy going forward? And how do we then, as a strategy issue, ensure that we are able to fix the skills and capabilities gap? and what that transition would be. And this is something I would say is not a small problem. I do believe it is quite a significant problem, and how different organizations manage that transition is going to be quite important to achieve that successful transition from legacy to taking the organization forward, incorporating all the new technologies.
Thank you. And I think collaboration is often key to success in tech adoption. I think Max mentioned earlier as well to look at insurance landscape as a whole, partner activities, the ecosystem, right? And I just wanted to maybe deep dive a little bit with Max over here. Are insurance companies partnering with tech firms or startups to enhance their operations to greater heights? Are there any insights that you have and see into some of these partnerships, and any notable partnerships or collaborations in the InsureTech space that you believe are game changers?
I think today, when it comes to the InsureTechs and the insurance discussion, it's more like, can they complement each other? It's not so much of competing today. You may see that more in other domains, but I think insurance is quite interestingly that we're always saying that we should just work together. And I think some of the things that is quite, more pivotal today is to see some of the current partnerships that we have seen before. Like, if you look at globally, if you look at first, there's Lemonade and Alliance as a company. So Alliance took a stake in Lemonade, and together what they did was to have a more customer-centric and digital approach. So they're tapping on each other's strengths. Lemonade comes in the InsureTech, and Alliance has the scale. And then if you look at things like Ping An and Chong An, both one's a very big company, customer basing, and then Chong An comes in the digital front that provides them with that sort of tools. And you might start to see there is a trend. So if I give a bit more example, is that from an Asia perspective, let's say Tricia Technology, a more automotive InsureTech, they are working with a Li Auto as a kind of provision. What they do is to look at whether could they partner up and provide new energy vehicles. So that is more of a new proposition. How do we insure electric vehicles and so on? And even in Chubb Digital, closer to Singapore as well, there is like the API services they're offering. Is for them to reach out to their partner level. So if I could just sum up some of the key trends, usually what we see is that when the InsureTech works with a big insurance company, it's more to tap on the insurance scale, but at the same time provide the support or proposition of how do you go digital. And then the next one is to experiment with new technologies or to provide new offerings, like probably electric vehicle insurance in future as well. Or even the insurance themselves could come up with their own APIs, and that could be tapped into say embedded insurance space, whereby the players could take on that role, or like e-commerce side could take on that role, and then some of the InsureTechs could work together as well. Because another trend that's happening is that the InsureTech could ride on the core providers or even the insurance the architecture, and provide that small little bit of niche servicing inside the whole landscape. So these are some of the trends that I tend to see when it comes to such conversations. Yeah.
Thank you, Max. And maybe David, to you as well. Yes, of course.
Yeah, sorry, you saying we could jump the queue. So yeah, I mean, adding to that, I mean, in Singapore, income insurance, we have a brand which is Snack, right? So that's a bit of where we are going in terms of InsureTech as well. The micro insurance offerings that we have, we have very I thought innovative products where we can actually do it from an embedded offering to even gig workers. We also experiment a lot in terms of the technology, where we have a team that actually does the whole digital transformation specific to driving that snack business. So I think you're right, it's a fast changing space, and also one that from an income insurance we actually do. So we have a traditional business model and a new business model, so that we can actually move in a very coordinated and controlled manner as well.
Yeah, David, I was gonna actually ask you about Snack as well. So we were on the same track. So that's awesome. Rangam, over to you as well. Any notable partnerships in the InsureTech space that you believe are game changers, or maybe anybody that you are currently working with at your company?
No, Tricia, certainly. I think what is fascinating, and I did see a stat earlier today where I saw that there is still in Q3 this year over $1.1 billion in terms of InsureTech capital raising and funding happening. And one of the big deals that got announced more recently, which we are talking about at next, insurance actually getting funding of $265 million with Allstate and Allianz. And what it goes to show, and what certainly was much more visible for me, is visible for me right now, is that there's a lot of investments actually going on into the GI space. In terms of, as we talked about, how do we use sensor technology? How do we use, individualized offerings and propositions, covering a whole spectrum of whether we talk about auto insurance going through to the commercial insurance space. Obviously, what gets more visibility today still are the, let's say, the distribution or embedded insurance partnerships, but there's a lot more happening at the back end in terms of really solving some of the key customer experience problems or the operational problems to really sort through that integration bit. At AmMetLife, we are also, working together. In fact, we are just working together with a couple of new digital partners who we will be talking about in the coming months. Nothing that I can really shout about right now, but that is a space certainly to look out for.
Thank you. And I think let's look ahead and kind of foresee what the InsureTech space will be like for 2024. Is generative AI, for instance, set to play a significant role? I think last year there was a very big craze on the metaverse and things like that. And then this year there is a big craze about generative AI. Do you think these trends are yearly trends, or do you think, for instance, generative AI will kind of be set in stone and that's kind of what people are looking forward to? I mean, other than that as well, what can we expect in terms of technological advancements and trends in the insurance industry as we head into 2024? So anyone, feel free to go first.
Yeah, maybe I could just more broad view. My view was that the generative AI is one of the key technology that's in trend today, partly because of how easily accessible it is to the mass audiences. So people start to get aware of it. But I think it's also good to take note that it's also partly driven through years of research that is happening behind the scenes that may not be known outside the data science community. And I think what we hope to see is that there'll be more conversations regarding the other activities that lead up to Gen AI as application to things like data management, like what we also talk about throughout the podcast on literacy and talent management and so on. So I think these are some of the things that should go hand in hand in that discussion when it comes to looking at new technologies that probably every few years you will hear of a certain term that pops out as well. Yeah, going back to the more fundamental core principles of it. Yeah.
I'll go next.
I can go next. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Rangam, you go ahead, please.
I mean, talking about before I jump into generative AI, right? I think a few of the things that we have spoken about earlier will continue to develop because we spoke about cloud. And frankly, while cloud has been progressing, the progress, the amount of progress we potentially can still make on cloud is huge. And I do believe that is going to be still a technology where a lot of the integration and the solutioning will be happening going forward, and that is really at a very early stage of development. There's going to be a lot of adoption on the cloud side, and the second element. I mean, we cannot get away from cybersecurity. Cyber is going to be huge, and just given the amount of digital fraud, and we have seen that on the banking side, insurers are exposed to a similar extent. And so just the cyber resilience and the systems resilience from a cyber perspective is going to be a huge part of the investment from an insurance company's perspective. And the third, which is really data. Data is going to be all encompassing, and the amount of investments that will go into data, it is going to be a continuing trend. And for that reason, because of the centrality that the data architecture, the data systems design, the data modeling will play in insurance companies, gives me a lot of confidence that the talk about generative AI is just not a seasonal trend. It is something because data at the heart will be at the heart of generative AI. And with the amount of investment that is going to go into data, will ensure that generative AI will continue to be a much more resilient and sustainable topic of discussion for the insurance industry. Let's say quite unlike blockchain, which kind of was a trend of the times, but now has kind of died down. But these three, in my mind, will really continue to drive the conversations forward.
Yeah, I guess I'll go as well. I think I totally echo Rangam's point. Once again, with a bias as a chief data officer, I think data will be the common focal point. With awareness of the powers and possibilities of AI, we'll see now, being able to solve legacy problems and, foundational things like AI a bit faster, data, pardon me, a bit better. I think that hopefully will be a trend of the future, because that is the core of how things can be done. I personally always see it as, it's as simple as accounting for finance. You got to fix that first before you can actually think about finance. So you got to fix the foundations of data first before anything actually happens. So hopefully that could be a new focus area of the future. And with that, I think personally, partnership has its promise as well in terms of how we could partner around data, core industries. I think that's one that could actually open new doors.
Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your insights on the evolution of technology in the insurance space. It's been an incredibly informative and forward-thinking conversation. And as we wrap up this podcast, I think we have uncovered the challenges and opportunities presented by technology, explored cutting-edge solutions, and peek into the future of InsureTech. The collaboration and innovation happening within the industry are truly exciting, and we look forward and ahead to 2024 and beyond. It's evident that technology, including generative AI, will continue to play a pivotal role in reshaping how insurers operate and serve their customers. To hear more insights about shaping the insurance industry, join us at ITC Asia 2024, happening from the 4th to 6th of June, and registrations are now open. Secure your spot today. Thank you, everyone. Thanks everyone,
Thank
and
you.
speakers as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been a
Thank
pleasure.
you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.